I have a question about W-4s.
Uh,
Someone wants to know, should I adjust my W-4 to have more or less tax taken out of my paycheck? And how is that figure coming about? How do you figure that out?
the simple way is look at last year's tax return. If you're assuming you have the same job, did you get a
Mhm.
refund? Did you owe? If you owed, you can have more tax taken out on your W-4. And if you got a refund, you might want to consider taking less out. So the W-4 is the form that you fill out when you have a W-2 employment, just a regular employee kind of relationship. And what it does is it tells the payroll department how much to withhold on your paycheck. Now, the W-4 and the payroll system just has loads of problems. And the, in 2020, they changed the form to try to fix one of these problems, but it doesn't work. The issue is with either people who have multiple jobs or there's a married couple and there's multiple jobs within the household. And so when your payroll company or payroll processor sees your paycheck, they only see that. And so they don't know what other jobs are in the household. So on the modern W-4, there is a tax table that says, okay, if my total household income is this, then withhold at that rate. But people don't fill it out, and I've seen lots of payroll processors still screw it up as far as withholding the right amounts. So you got to be really diligent about that, and it's especially true if you have very disparate income. So one spouse makes a lot, the other spouse makes a little, then the one that makes a little is not withholding nearly enough, and that can drag the whole thing down. So that's what the W-4 attempts to do. So if you withhold too little, then if it's extreme, the IRS can actually come in and force withholding and force backup withholding and force the payroll companies or the payroll processor to withhold at the maximum rate, which would be like single, no dependent kind of thing for everybody in your tax household. That's a possibility. On the flip side of things, if you're getting massive refunds every year, all that means is that you gave the government money you didn't have to, and they're returning it to you, right? That's not a great use of your cash flow. So ideally, when it comes to filing your taxes, you'd be dead even. No, nothing owed, no refund every single year. Now, obviously, there's fluctuations, and I made a little more this year, I made a little less this year, whatever. So it's never going to be perfect, but that's the goal, is to be right on target. And the other problem with the W-4 that nothing has fixed is the pay period annualization. What that means is that if you every time you get a paycheck, they look at that pay period and they say, okay, you get paid twice every 2 weeks. So you're going to have 26 pay cycles per year. So we're going to take this one pay period, multiply by 26, and then figure out whatever we should have withheld based on that. So if you make the same every pay period, then that's fine. But if you have any kind of variability, like either your hours go up or down, or you get a bonus or anything like that, the periods where you get high income get withheld way too much, and the periods with low income get withheld way too little. And so maybe it averages out, maybe it doesn't. It just depends, right? You have to be aware of that. And I've seen cases where some companies will allow the employees to fiddle with their withholding settings just automatically. So I knew a bunch of people who used to work for American Express that did this. Apparently, in their system, you could just select on their internal system and it would just process through no problem. And so there would be people who would say, "Okay, I'm getting a big bonus this quarter or this paycheck, so I'm gonna mark myself as exempt for this paycheck, and I know I'll catch up on the rest of the paychecks and everything." And so they do that, and then they forgot to turn it back afterwards. Forgot, right? And then they end up at the end of the year with no withholding whatsoever or very little. And they're like, "Oh, what happened? I don't know." So now you owe a ton of money. You do want to manage it. You don't want to overmanage it if you have variable income. So just something to be aware of. And ideally, you want to check up throughout the year and make sure that everything is running along smoothly so that if you're in April and quarter 1 is done, then you can project out whatever I've earned this year so far times 4. Am I in line with the tax rates? And then after quarter 2, you can look at it and say, okay, 6 months times 2, am I in line? And so you can do those adjustments throughout the year if you have income that's variable like that. If you're just straight salary or you always have the same amount of hours, then you probably don't need to worry about it. But that's the W-4 stuff.